on the Martin down in Ocala in Studio
Horse
Zero.
country.
Horse country, that's right. And look, there's a lot to talk about as there is every day. We got three of the best. Chris Lee, Southeastern 14 up in Nashville, bats in the leadoff position. Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, checks in. And Vince Farrar of the Sports Animal in Knoxville as well. Get your questions in, type them in on YouTube, Facebook.
Get your coffees.
That's cold coffee, yeah. Smash the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner.
More caffeine in here at this when it's
yeah,
colder.
I got the traditional, Columbia Joe, and then
I'll be sweating.
Yeah, I'm telling you what, it's going to be. It was 88 up here yesterday, so
It'll
it's
be
getting.
fitzing.
Spring is microwaving through here fast, but
it's like summer here.
Hit the smash the subscribe button on your Android or iPhone
or your computer.
Okay, allow notifications. Yeah. And on your computer, smash the subscribe button for YouTube. Okay, and Facebook and everywhere we're live. Okay, tell friends and family and neighbors. If you missed the shows live, they're all cataloged at the SEC Sidelines Sports Network and SECU right there. You can't miss it. Just
you really can't.
It's all there. It's really cool. A lot of y'all watching, telling your friends and sharing. Again, listen live. You can sync it in your car, truck, SUV. If anyone still drives a car, I don't know anyone that really does much anymore. It's either, well, my wife does. She's got a Lexus, but but I'm a F-150 man.
Yeah.
I four-wheel drive. I just put 4 new tires on there Friday. If it ain't got four-wheel drive, it ain't a truck, Brenden.
I feel that about you, man. I feel that.
Damn right.
I drive a big old Tahoe, so what do I know?
Hey, I've had a Tahoe. I've had a Suburban. I've had a lot of
drive the wheels off that thing till it dies. I don't care.
All right, let's get rolling. We're gonna come back. Get pen and paper handy.
Come on, bring it,
Rob. Ready. We're coming.
Bring it.
Let's go.
I need your energy to go.
I'm bringing
up.
it.
You're at a 3, and I need you at like an 8 or a 9.
Hey, I'm ready.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Chris Lee in the Mid-State, Nashville. Hope everything's going well for you up there, Chris. Southeastern 14. The countdown is on to July 1st when our new best friends, our bunkmates, our buddies, our pals, our amigos.
Who's your buddy? Who's your pal?
Texas and OU are coming into the league. Chris, man, I tell you, it's going to be fun. I just got a thing. The post-spring college football top 25 that came out from Kirk Herbstreit. We'll get to that in a second. But what's the bat? You're batting leadoff today. So what's the number one thing you're following?
Well, I think batting is a good intro. I think we're getting to the point where we're a couple of weeks away from the NCAA tournament. We've got teams trying to make the field, teams trying to get national seeds, teams trying to host. A lot to be decided in the last couple of weeks, and I think that's the big thing that I'm following.
Yeah, and SEC baseball this year, 1 to 5. 1, it's abysmally bad. 5, it's historically great. What kind of number do you give the league this year?
I'll reference an old movie that you may appreciate. I think this goes to 11. It's I think this is the best I've ever seen the league.
Yeah.
What movie?
And it's
you guys have seen Spinal Tap, right?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh,
wow. That's
a deep reference,
you went into
Chris.
your bag there, bro.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome. Damn.
If you've not seen Spinal Tap, then then you need
You
to.
have a need. You need to stop whatever you're doing right now. If you've not seen Spinal Tap, and go and watch Spinal Tap, and come join the rest of us. Thank you.
Well, I mean,
My
the
PSA
league
for the day.
Well, I'll tell you one
That was
thing.
Chris Lee's PSA for the day.
Well, Chris, here's what I'm going to throw at you. The last 3 national champions, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and LSU, it's been a tough act the next year. And in the case of Ole Miss and Mississippi State, really the last couple of years, pitching is at a premium like I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't think the pitching's that bad. I think the conditions just favor hitting to a ridiculous degree. And I think there's a lot going on there.
Well, I'm just looking here at teams like Auburn. They're at the bottom of the league. You're 14th. I mean, that's brutal. After they just did $32 million and this big commitment, that doesn't matter. It's all NIL now for baseball, just like it is football and basketball, isn't it?
The footballization of the league has really hit hard the last 3 or 4 years. I think in every respect, everything that you could name about football that you could import to baseball, the good, the bad, the ugly, I think has now made its way into the league.
The footballization is right. I mean, because they're putting boxes, luxury boxes in these baseball stadiums in the SEC. How many teams do you think we're going to have in the NCAA tournament from the SEC?
If it were me, it would be 11. I don't know that everybody can make it. I think the teams to watch are probably Vanderbilt, Florida, LSU in some order. LSU did itself a big favor this last weekend with what it did against Texas A&M. I think I say this all the time. You guys are probably sick of hearing this.
I'm so sick of it.
The sum of wins and losses is always the same, no matter how good the league is.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have a team that's a perennial power like a Florida or like LSU has been more often than not. LSU has had some bad, well, not bad, but non-LSU like seasons for what we have thought of LSU the last 30 years. And somebody's going to bear the brunt of it somewhere. And, Vanderbilt's got the longest streak of not hosting NCAA tournament appearances of anybody in the NCAA. That's in jeopardy.
What is that number, by the way?
I think it's 17.
Wow.
Florida State had it, and it was more than double that for a while, I think. And then FSU lost it a couple of years ago. I mean, you've got, let's see, LSU is sitting there at 9-15 in the league. Instead, like if you get 14 wins in this league, you're getting in, right? If you get 13, you got a shot a lot of years, depending on some other things. If you get 12, you've seen it with 12 before, although it's usually 12 with the rain out somewhere. So it's not 12 and 18. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot. Ole Miss is the team that I don't think Ole Miss is deserving of a bid, but because it plays in the SEC and you can get your brains beat in by teams.
Yeah.
And still not go anywhere in the RPI depending on who you play and where you play. Ole Miss has got an RPI in range. So really you've got what everybody but Missouri and Auburn.
Yeah.
It's not at this point.
Yeah. All right. Brenden, I sent you that top 25. That looks like Kirk Herbstreit's post-college football spring practice. If you can post that on the screen, Chris, I want to pick at this and get all of y'all's comment. Have you seen it yet, Brenden?
Yeah, I don't know if I can.
If we can post it. Well, Herbstreit, let me just go down it. Herbstreit's got number 1. He's got Ohio State. And I'm not saying he's a homer or anything like that, because I don't think he really is. I think he left Columbus and moved to Franklin, Tennessee, because he was critical of Ohio State. I remember meeting him out in the stands at a CBHS MBA game. I think his kids went to MBA, and then they went to Clemson, I think. But he's got Ohio State number 1, Georgia number 2. I'm going to take them in groups of 5, and then we'll break them down. Okay, Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Texas number 3, Oregon 4, and coming in at number 5, hotty toddy, Ole Miss. All right, Coach, I'll hang up and listen for your thoughts and comments. And howdy toddy. What do you think, Chris?
Number one, it's the top 25 for this week until until the portal settles again.
That's right. That's right.
And I think the other thing is, who adapts and changes with the times and does it effectively, and who doesn't. Because there's one team in that top 5 that I think we all sit up at, and we know who it is. And there's one team that's conspicuously missing from that.
Yeah. Who is the team? No, Ole Miss is the one that adapts and survives.
Right.
Okay. Who is the one that is conspicuously missing from that top 5 of Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, Oregon, and Ole Miss?
I mean, when's the last time we had a preseason top
Alabama?
5? Include that, like 1942. I mean, it's
got to be Alabama. Right. Yeah. Where do you see this? Wow. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's go to the next 5. The University of Utah, the Utes. Okay. Number 6. Number 7, Alabama. Okay. Number 8, the national champion. They're not defending. They are the national champion until they, lose it. Michigan. Number 9, I just ain't buying it. Penn State. And number 10, Missouri. It looks like a lot of rear view mirror picks from last year. Chris, guys, your thoughts and comments on those 5?
I presume you're referring to Missouri as a rear view mirror pick, but
I'm thinking Penn State. Penn State is
mirror. maybe, but look, James Franklin's done this thing where they're like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but I mean, they're always right there. They always beat Minnesota and Illinois and into Indiana. The teams they're supposed to beat. They schedule, East Carolina or whoever, that they'll build in 4 wins, and they're always there at the end. They'll lose to Michigan, they'll lose to Ohio State, and you look up and
that's right.
At the end of the year they're 10-3, and it's like clockwork. So I mean that's got to play somewhere. I know people focus on the loss end of it, but I mean the guy's been remarkably consistent, and it's not like they've had a 4-8 year, which is really hard to do in this. Yeah. Other unless you're like Alabama or Ohio State, like the top 4 or 5 brands, they're always going to be there regardless. But everybody else could have one of those years where they're a little off, and they've not done that.
Yeah. Let me ask you about Missouri. I think Eli Drinkwitz is a really good coach. He's got a great NIL program in state. Missouri was the first to have this, but if you're an in-state student athlete and you sign, you can start getting your payments in high school. Now, we all know that NIL isn't pay for play, right? That's all it is. It's basically nothing more and nothing less. Other states are going to do this, but Missouri has had their moments before. You remember 2007, the border war, Kansas and Missouri. Of the 11 starters on that Missouri team, 10 of them were in-state kids. The only non-Missouri born and bred in the Show Me State was Chase Daniel, the quarterback from Texas. Mm-hmm. I mean, and so I still think Gary Pinkel is one of the most underrated coaches we've ever seen. And I hate what happened to him at Missouri. He's a good dude. He was classmates with Nick Saban at Kent State, and I think it was May 4th of 1973 when the Kent State nightmare happened. He and Gary Pinkel were going to lunch, and they decided, do you want to go to this protest? It was during the Vietnam War. And Saban said, let's go eat lunch first, and then let's go out there. And when they came out of the cafeteria after lunch, they said there was smoke in the air, people screamed. It was a nightmare. But they were there playing for their mentor, Don James, a United States Marine, who went on to have a hell of a career as a coach and put Washington on the map.
Yeah, there's a lot in there about right place at right time or wrong place at wrong time. And 2 completely different sets of the spectrum.
Oh, there. Yeah. But I would love to get Gary Pinkel on this show with all of us, the 3 of us talk. I'm a big fan of his. I go to Missouri, plenty. We trout fish in the Ozarks and spent a lot. I worked for A.G. Edwards in St. Louis for 8.5 years. That's one of the greatest cities in America. It's the greatest baseball town in America. Sorry, it's better than New York. They got the Hill. They got 10 great Italian restaurants. You know, Joe Garagiola's from St. Louis. Man, what Don Esther from East St. Louis? I think on Sanford and Son. Yeah.
Oh,
so, yeah. You bug-eyed.
Took me a second.
It's early morning. So, yeah. But, all right, let's go to the next top 5. All right, number 11, Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame. Number 12, Florida State. Number 13, Clemson. 14, LSU. 15, Southern Cal. I'm just going to say it. The University of Spoiled Children, USC. That place, they don't play defense. They're like Florida State in the early Bobby Bowden years. Let's just try and outscore everybody. That's a 7-5, 8-4 program in the Big Ten. Even with the number 1 draft pick, Caleb Williams, what was the record this past year? I just don't see that. He doesn't take football seriously as a complete coach.
The range of outcomes on that 11 to 15 there, based on the last decade or two, is pretty wide.
Yeah. I mean, okay. LSU at 14. Are you buying that, or are they underrated?
To be brutally honest, I don't lock in to college football this time. Now, I might have 10 years ago, because at that point in time, it seemed like there. I think people can say that this has brought interest in the offseason, and I think it has, but it's just occurred to me as we're doing this, it's lessened my interest in some ways, because I don't, it feels like to me like I'm following baseball and just got done following basketball, and there's enough there to keep me busy. Yeah. So to me, what's the point of locking in and diving into LSU's roster when a month from now it might look a lot different? Like, settle the thing and then give me time. But in the meantime, let me spend my time and my bandwidth on things where I'm not wasting time. Where, like, baseball rosters, they're not changing midseason unless somebody gets hurt or somebody gets benched. So I think for me, it kind of works the opposite way. Obviously, you have to have your antenna up and pay a little bit of attention, but I don't start forming opinions on teams, to me, because it feels like a waste of time with all the other stuff I've got to do. Yeah. And the way I look at it, the magazines always come out around Memorial Day. And let me interrupt you there. I'm writing Vanderbilt's preview for Lindy's right now. I'll have to turn that in a couple of days, and I've got a couple things I'm trying to figure out how to write around, because I talked to Clark Lee yesterday, and they've got things on their roster that are, all right, this is the plan, but waiting for this and this and this. And so, you just kind of leave a parenthetical note and move on. Yeah. And it is, I'm with you, because of the portal and because of NIL. If a guy's a graduate, I think if you're a graduate, you can move at any time. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the world that we live in. And I'm just going to run them through if anything grabs out. 16 through 20, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Miami, Oregon State, Kansas State, and then Arizona, Nebraska, Kansas, and Texas A&M's at 25. Trying to see who this is at 24, Iowa. Well, they'll win a bunch of games, but, man, they can't score to save their life. That's fun. But, all right, we're going to blow on past that. Get back in here with baseball. Opening day rosters in the major leagues, they're filled with SEC players. Mm-hmm. And the game has changed a ton, because players used to just go to the minors. And now you're better off going to college and playing. You might play 55 or 60 games in a season in the SEC. You go to the minor leagues, that's a rough life. And a lot of guys go there 6, 7, 8 years. You go to college for 3 years in a more structured program, not as much wear and tear on your body. You got a lot more tread on those tires. Yeah. I think that's why baseball, that 3-year commitment
that you've got to stay at least 3 years. Look how much better Major League Baseball is than the NBA. I mean, the NBA's numbers have got to be just absolutely terrible right now.
Well, I think to be technical is not always 3 years. You've got draft eligible sophomores who can go after 2. That's not a large number, but it's maybe 5% of the pool. So there's some of that, which gets you some leverage. I think that maybe the bigger thing we should be talking about. Yeah. It's based on birth date, but which actually gives those guys 2 leverage points, because you can either take what's offered to you after your sophomore year. If you're in that category, you can do it again as a junior and then have that for your senior year. But I think baseball's really got it. And I think there's a lot of things wrong with the college game right now, but there's a lot of things right with it too. And I think baseball's got a real opportunity to step up and really start. I don't know. I don't know that, like, if you can compete with an MLB signing bonus of $8 million, or $10 million for what these top 5 guys get. But a little further down the line, you might. And now I'll be interested to see if MLB ups its signing bonuses in response to what colleges can do with the NIL. It might or it might not. But I think that there's.
Can you believe what you just said?
I can't believe a lot of things I say.
No, I'm just saying. I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's a powerful statement.
Yeah, but let's rewind a little bit, okay? You got White Langford, who this time a year ago was hitting number 3 or wherever he was hitting for the Florida Gators.
Yeah,
makes the opening day roster of the defending world champions.
Yeah,
and not just that, guys. Do you know how many at bats White Langford had as a freshman at Florida?
I don't know this.
4, which is 4 more than Charlie Condon had.
He had 4?
4.
God, that's a great stat.
That speaks to me about the ability of some of these SEC teams to develop players. And I wonder, like, Paul Skeens could be up this year. I feel like some things have flipped a little bit to where I'm very curious. Because usually if you were a first-round draft pick, you're going to go, I say a first-round draft pick. There's a disconnect between what gets you taken in the first round sometimes and maybe where you are if you just rank the players 1 to 35 or whatever, however far you want to go.
Yeah.
Because of the bonus structure and you've got a cap, and okay, we might pick a guy under slot. The slot value for him is $6 million, but we know he's willing to sign for 3.5, so we'll take him there, and we'll apply the savings to somebody later on down the draft. If you know how it works, you know what I mean. So the draft is always a little bit weird, but I do wonder, and then occasionally you'll see guys pull out entirely. Every once in a blue moon, you'll see a guy at the top 150, top 100 pick say, don't even put me in the draft. I'm going to college.
Yeah.
Right.
I wonder if you will start seeing, again, I don't know the top 5 or 6 that college can touch the money, but I mean, the world's changing so quickly. Maybe they can, maybe we're a couple of years away from the day that, LSU is going to pay a guy $10 million to come to school.
Wow.
I doubt it, because you've only got so many resources and football's still king, but there's been a lot. My point is, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened that none of us would have even, it wouldn't have been on our radar to predict those things a few years ago. So here's the point I'm making. I'm very interested to see, Paul Skeens 2 years ago allegedly got paid $250,000 to come to LSU. Mm-hmm. That seems like an absolute bargain. They don't win the national title without him. Yeah. So and that's a kid that was pitching at Air Force.
Yeah.
So no, again, I don't think that you make that the rule necessarily, but it's not going to stop people from doing that, because you're going, all right, well, let's see if we got a good roster coming back and we can go out and find a stud pitcher from Miami of Ohio or somewhere that we think's worth it, and everybody else in the league wants him. What's the market value? Like, what would you have paid for Paul Skeens now if you knew what he was going to do? And maybe once that becomes the thinking, if it hasn't already, I do wonder what that does to the first round of the draft.
Well, and we're going to bring in Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. And just to put things in perspective, Dudley, we've been talking about Kirk Herbstreit's way too early post-spring practice college football preseason top 25, but a lot on college baseball. And I don't know if you heard the whole conversation, but Chris, I'm going to throw this out there for both of y'all, and you know it, but you know, I asked him on a 1 to 5, 1 being abysmally bad, 5 historically great. How do you rank this SEC baseball season? He said 11. His reference was to that movie, The Spinal Tap, okay? But look at the top 5. Number 1, the Tennessee Volunteers. Number 2, Texas A&M. Number 3, Clemson. Number 4, Kentucky. And number 5, Arkansas. I mean, you know, there's nowhere to hide. And I'll use this analogy in the SEC. It's like you're feeling kind of tough at a bar at 3 a.m. You're liquored up. You want to punch somebody. The guy on your left is the Navy SEAL. The guy on your right's Army Ranger, 3rd Battalion. Guy over there is Delta Force. Guy over there is Special Forces, Green Beret. There's nowhere to hide. This league.
There's no fight. I'm having.
There's no. I mean, who you going to go pick on?
None.
That's my point. Even the lowest ranked team, Dudley Dawson, is like a cottonmouth. After you shoot one, don't ever go up and pick it up by the tail. It'll turn around and bite you for about 24 hours. They're still able to do that.
First of all, we start closing the bars up here at 1:40, so
Okay.
there'll be no swinging at 3.
Our time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all those guys you just listed, I would have worked them during the middle of the night, so they would have been in back of me. I have been known to say a few things over my life, but I always had somebody bigger behind me when I said it.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, I'm just saying. Look at this, Chris. You're a baseball junkie. Dudley is a lifelong. He was born pulling for the Cardinals. Now, I mean, I
kind of tough right now.
Yeah. How did that happen?
Poor management and administration. Those guys have got to go first before the players.
Yeah. Chris, you're a Braves fan, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. That's pretty much, I call the audience of Braves country on the eastern flank. On the western flank is Cardinals Nation, and down south are the Rays.
Yeah.
Those
We've
three
got
teams.
both. We got them both here in the house. The patron, my wife, is a Braves fan, so you know it's one of those things that it's been pretty good over the last few years. So you know, tough weekend for them in LA, but I'm sure they're going to get back at it.
Oh, look, the thing about Major League Baseball, there's nothing more fun to go to than a baseball game. I think y'all would both agree on that. I'm going to throw some back and forth. Well, I got two of the smarter baseball people out there, kind of back and forth. And I'll start with Dudley and then back to Chris. Dudley, SEC baseball is great. Now you're bringing in Texas and OU. How much, I mean, could you ask for, if you're the TV people, for a better scenario? With
and
those two?
It's going to be fun. I don't know that the SEC tournament, you know, means a whole lot in terms of what you do when you get to, you know, the NCAA tournament. But it's going to be, I think, a lot more fun event when they go to single elimination after those first couple of days, and you're going to have all of them there. It's going to be fun to watch. Be less having to worry about rainouts and all that. But, yeah, it's going to be a phenomenal league. It's already a phenomenal league, and now you're going to add these two. And that's in every sport, not just baseball, obviously. But, yeah, you know, at first I have to admit, growing up in the state of Arkansas, you hate Texas. I mean, that's just kind of the way it was back when in the 1960s and 70s. But I'm looking forward to it. As a sports writer, it adds narratives and storylines, and that's what I'm looking for.
Chris Lee, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, Texas is the top 5 program historically. Oklahoma is a program that was in the College World Series final 2 years ago. I think that the commitment to baseball at times at Oklahoma has been questioned. I don't know what the national title did in terms of improving facilities, which I think were needed. But, you know, certainly two teams, you know, Texas, I think until probably, 15 years ago would have been considered the top college baseball program of all time, maybe Southern Cal. A lot of that work is in the rearview mirror for Southern Cal. In fact, by a lot, I mean almost all. But point is, those are programs that have had some historic success, and at Oklahoma's, it's been very recent.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this at you. Chris, you just touched on it. I'll throw it back to Dudley. When you talked about some of these historically great programs, Rod Ditto at Southern Cal, Augie Garrido at Texas, count up the national championships, there's about 15 or 16 between the two of them. You know what I've noticed? That some programs, when they're the biggest fish in the pond, they're really good. But when there's competition, they ain't that good. Case in point, Kentucky basketball. You know, Mike Slive may have been the guy that started the ruining of Kentucky basketball when he told everybody in the league, man, start putting some effort into basketball. And then look in the last 7 years. Hell, Auburn and Alabama, better than Kentucky. And this is in an era when there's more money and stuff for facilities and everything. Dudley, you agree with that? I think you're finding out when there's more competition. Some of these programs were kind of just, when they were the only restaurant in town, but now they got competition. They're okay, not elite.
Yeah, I've always loved college baseball during the 40 years I've been covering sports and all that, but it hadn't been as popular as it is now. I mean, it is, it's off the charts right now in each of these schools. And I think there are a couple of schools in the SEC who are, getting their facilities to where they need to be. It didn't used to be where they're at, but they put money into it. Yeah. And I think it's a joy. I mean, I watch a lot of college baseball, whether it's the SEC or whatever. I mean, I just think it's a great game. We've talked many times about how much I love the sport. Wife worries I love about it more than her, but that's not true. It is one of those things that I just really enjoy the game. And I think that the amount of money put in the arms race, and now I heard you talk about Paul Skeens. By the way, I've got him sitting on one of my fantasy teams because I know he's got one more start in Triple A when it comes on up. Looking forward to that. But I think it's a way to watch, and the popularity of it just keeps growing and growing and growing.
Chris, I like that.
Yeah, and I'll touch around the edges, if not the middle of what you were getting at. I'll give you a good and a bad of how the competition either makes you or crushes you. I don't think that Tennessee baseball probably is what it is if Vanderbilt baseball isn't what it is. And here's what I mean by that. 4 or 5 years ago, Tennessee fans would have laughed at Vanderbilt fans for celebrating baseball. They would have said, all right, nobody cares about baseball. That's just thing that losers who can't win in football focus on. That fan base is as energized and as out there as anyone now in just a matter of 4 or 5 years based on what Tony Vitello has done. That's one where I think the surroundings, and look, let's be fair. Tennessee had some good teams under Rod Delmonico, went to the College World Series several times, but was never as consistent year in and year out as it's been the last 4 to 5 years. That's number one. On the other side, I would look at Missouri. And I would say Missouri's a team that right before it got in the SEC was having a pretty good run in the Big 12, was in the tournament, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 times the decade before it got in. People might not know this, but Max Scherzer pitched at Missouri. Aaron Crow, who did not have a decorated MLB career, also pitched at Missouri. I think was a, national player, national pitcher of the year type guy. So Missouri was having some success in getting to the tournament and putting out some major league talent.
Yeah.
Missouri has not made the NCAA tournament since it joined the SEC. Now, I would argue 1 or 2 of those years it probably should have, and the committee did not do – well, I shouldn't say the committee didn't do a great job. I think that there was cause to maybe include Missouri a couple of those years, but that's not what the record shows. And so those are – sometimes it does elevate you, sometimes it does crush you, and I think we've seen both.
Yeah, and that's hard to believe. Missouri with football, can they do that again? I mean, it's one thing to do it 1 year. Can you do it in any sport? I mean, Missouri basketball this last year, they did it. They did something that's very hard to do. They went 0-18 in the SEC. That was tough, and now they've got 3 or 4 of the top 100 players in the country they signed in this class. But I just think college baseball is popular because people in general love the game of baseball. And it's the greatest spectator sport, Dudley, to go to. I mean, think of what's better than being at in St. Louis, Busch Stadium? And I can just tell you from a million scout trips and canoeing trips in Arkansas and Missouri as a kid, listening to Jack Buck and Mike Shannon open up an ice cold Anheuser-Busch in the 7th inning. It's the greatest sport on radio, Dudley.
Yeah,
and I think the
I love
college
listening.
is annuitizing it.
Yeah, I loved listening to KMOX back in the day, and July 12th and 14th, I'll be running up to watch the Cards and the Cubs at Busch Stadium. Looking forward to that. But I mean, baseball's just a great game. Ian Kinsler's another one who played at Missouri. Good friends with Matt Zimmerman, used to be assistant coach here. But it just is a situation that here in Arkansas, it's always been popular. Norman DeBryan did a great job back in the day. Dave Van Horn has come in, and obviously the last 22 years has just built on it. You know, they're lacking one thing, obviously, and that's the national championship. They keep getting close and getting to the College World Series, and maybe one day that'll happen for him, so he could take that line off of his or put it on his resume, I guess would be the right thing. But here's the thing: baseball has always been popular here, whether football has been doing good or not. And boy, when it's not doing good, baseball becomes the thing. And I say that with all due respect to basketball. Now it is Musselman came in here and did some great stuff, but the 20 years before that wasn't anything to write home about. And obviously football has been up and down. It's the king when everything's going great, but baseball has been consistent. The most consistent thing outside of track and field, which we know Arkansas is a track and field school.
Yes. Well, and I'm looking here, by the way, at some of these questions coming in. I like this from George, one of our viewers. What could possibly go wrong with having private equity hand teenagers millions of dollars to do as they're told on any play? Wow. Listen, Chris, you first. Well, Vince Ferrara is going to be on in just a second from the Sports Animal in Knoxville. But what could go wrong with that?
I'm a free market guy. I have no problem with people making their stuff. I think that NIL has leveled the playing field in a lot of things. I think it is. We talked early in the show about how it could bring more talent to SEC baseball and any other league for that matter. So I'm all for that. And I feel like this is kind of the necessary catastrophe in the meantime, that you want to see, like, okay, what is somebody willing to pay if you can do anything? And I think that's helpful, but I think it's also pretty time we move on to kind of law and order.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, you burn out good coaches. You take away from a lot of stuff that I think is beneficial to college athletes with the structure, with going to class. I mean, we could do 2 hours on this, but I think the answer is kind of self-evident.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, and I think I'm a free market guy, but in the free markets, you still have structure. You can't make 5 points on a bond trade. It's about transparency. Everybody can look at the Bloomberg. I mean, it's just we're. That's what I'm saying. The free market will correct it, because you can't force people to donate to anything. I mean, and that's what happens. Vince Ferrara, the Sports Animal 99.1 up in Knoxville, Tennessee, was at the Touchdown Club, by the way, Monday night, the Spring Speaker Series, Touchdown Club in Memphis. Last week we had Paul Feinbaum. Monday night we had Houston Nutt Dudley. Great talking to him. He's going to be on the show Friday with us. Fantastic. I didn't realize he lives in McKinney, Texas. I thought he lived still in Little Rock. But we asked him, hey, you want to keep doing TV? He said, 11 years of 21 straight weekends, leaving Thursday, getting home Sunday night or Monday? No. He goes, I have grandchildren now and 4 kids, and I went to my first tailgate this past year. All right, Vince, you got the number 1 ranked baseball team in America, Tennessee, right now. And we were just talking about, Chris made a point maybe 5 years ago, Tennessee fans would look at Vanderbilt and go, that's what people that don't win in anything else do. They get excited about baseball. Look at the contagion, just the ripple effect. By the way, that is a great song by the Grateful Dead, Ripple. But anyway, think about the effect college baseball up in Knoxville. And I think you've talked about it, Vince. the Knoxville Smokies have a big stadium. What are they expanding the stadium there, Lindsey Nelson Stadium in Knoxville, to?
Well, great to be on with you guys. Appreciate you as always. It's multiple phases. Their biggest expansion was is still to come for 2025 after the season is over. They've set attendance records, but only bumped with the grandstand down the left field line. It's only bumped the attendance potential, the capacity up a little bit over 6,000. But I think they're hoping to get to the 7,000, 7,500. It's not going to be the Arkansas, the Mississippi States, the LSU in terms of total number of people in there, but it's going to be closer to the action than some other ballparks, and just the renovation and the ballpark experience that fans haven't gotten. And look, there's going to be much greater demand for those tickets than there's going to be seats available, which obviously draws up the price. And then the biggest thing is the luxury suites too. That's where Tennessee has not been able to profit. All those schools have great luxury suites. Tennessee didn't have that. We don't even have a elevator to the press box. Amazingly. Yeah. My partner, John Wilkerson's been calling baseball games for many years. This is his 32nd year of the steps at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. So to the press box. So yeah, it sucks to do. You go down and do post game. You come up for the game to the press box, then you run down to the locker room all the way to the bottom for post game. You run back up to finish post game. This is me at the top in the press box, and then you walk back down the steps to leave. So I feel it some days, but look, that's all going to get taken care of with the expansion after the season, and it's going to look great according to all the work, and they need to cash in on the high level of interest. You mentioned how things have turned around now for Tennessee baseball. 40-9. That's 5 straight seasons of 40-plus wins. Wow. Couple of trips so far to the College World Series. And they weren't even a 500 team for during the Todd Raleigh years, and even struggled some under Dave Serrano. But it's just a whole new world of them being baseball and consistent, which is so hard to do with all these national champions, as you guys know, that struggle the year after.
Yeah, we were talking about that a minute ago. Is that look at Mississippi State, look at Ole Miss, look at LSU since they won the national championship. Now, I'll throw this question to you, Chris, and then to Dudley. Would you rather win a national championship or just be in that elite group every year? Consistency or greatness? What do you want?
I think that's the hardest question to answer in sports. I'll speak as a Braves fan. It's been nice to be there every year. Like, I mean, the Braves have hit pockets, a decade ago where they weren't very good or were mediocre. And it feels like now for 5 or 6 years, they've been right there. And then there was also the 1990s where they were there and they won it once. But I'll say this, when I watched the final out in 2021 with my then 7-year-old son, who my wife let stay up to watch game 6, that's something you never forget. And I think those moments and those banners that you can hang are always pretty special. But it's also nice not to go through a decade where it's just kind of hopeless too.
Yeah, Dudley, look at Arkansas. Unbelievable.
Well, I wanted to answer that first question.
Yeah, okay.
I'll take the World Championship right away as a Cardinal fan. It's been 13 years now. This is not a thing that has happened during my life a lot. That it's gone that far. Yeah. And now they're just horrible. I think we need to tear it down and start from scratch because, it's great to be consistent and all that. As Chris pointed out, it's cool to be good, but it's awesome to be great. And you get to, I got some with the Golden Knights last year, may be able to get some with the Celtics this year, but I need some new World Championship t-shirts. Let's just be honest about that. My 2008 Celtics t-shirt's getting pretty old.
Yeah. I mean, and you think about it, Vince, just the Braves, every time I'm in Atlanta at Mallory and Tyler and Chandler's, it's less than a mile from the Battery. We go up there, and they're just packed in there, and they're always good. But in the last 40 years, they're one of the most consistent franchises in baseball, in professional sports. They have 2 World Series to show for it, Vince. You're a Rays fan. I know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have not cashed in. The Rays have not. They're another one that's consistently really good and gets, as you guys know, the most out of the money they invest in their salary cap, but just not able to cash in. I've said it for many years, until they get a ballpark in Hillsborough County in Tampa where that fan base is the large majority of them, they're not going to win. And apparently they're staying in Pinellas County with but they've had so much politics involved there and anything. But I would also answer it by cashing in, because a couple of things, especially in college sports, once you have that championship, you can never take that away from them. Whether it's fans or whether it's the school, that is something that you can brag about forever. Now, obviously, if somebody else wins, they could brag too, but it's a flag that you can wave forever. And then on the college level, it helps you in recruiting as well, to where maybe you don't have the lull back quite as much, depending on the sport. If you do have the ability to show that you can win championships here, it has happened. It obviously depends on how far back you drop off. You don't want to drop off to the bottom, but that's not that normal. So I would also take cashing in on the world championship rather than just being in contention, because we've seen people lose their jobs by just being in contention. Look at the grief that Ryan Day gets. Okay, he's in contention. He loses to his rival. All right, great. No thanks. We're ready to move on for some people. Just for today's world, just being in contention isn't good enough for a lot of fans.
Yeah, Ryan Day's lost, 5 games since he's been the head coach at Ohio State, 3 in a row to Michigan. And prior to that, they'd beaten Michigan 15 of 16 years. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing a guy's T-shirt back in 2004. It had 42 Big Ten championships on it from Michigan in football. And they didn't win another one until 2021. Hard to believe. And now they've won 3 in a row. That's 45. And as great a program as Alabama is, I think they're at 29 or 30 SEC championships. But in fairness, the Big Ten was founded in 1896, the SEC in 1933. I got to ask now, I mean, we're talking a lot of college SEC baseball right now. Outside of the league, Chris Lee, and then I'm going to go hit Chris and then Dudley and back to Vince. Give me the biggest threats to the SEC teams, which are 4 of the top 5 spots, with Clemson, the one outlier from the ACC, at the number 3 spot.
I have not followed the leagues outside the SEC as much, because I'm all in on trying to get as much out of this league and all the 14 teams as I can get to. Yeah. But I do watch the computers. There's a few that I pay attention to, and I've seen North Carolina, Clemson probably the first team of that bunch to, be in a lot of people's top 7 or 8. Virginia's up there too. Virginia feels a team maybe a lot like Tennessee, where it scores a lot of runs. The pitching may not be elite, although I guess Tennessee's I think is better than Virginia's, just based on the numbers I've seen. I mean, it is really a very heavily dominated SEC, ACC space. The other teams that you're seeing up there, East Carolina, which is always up there, and Oregon State, but it doesn't look like, just looking at where the computers have got teams, it looks like an Oregon State team that's more of a host team maybe than a super regional host type team, based on what I've seen. But, the committee's going to decide it differently based on resumes and stuff, but just it seems like it's a very 2-conference dominated thing with a little bit of influence from the Big 12, East Carolina, and then Oregon State.
All right. Dudley?
Yeah, I feel like it's always going to be pitching and having enough to win it all once you get to Omaha. Obviously I think Arkansas believes it has enough to do that, but the last couple of weekends, The efficiency on the mound with Brady Tigard and Mason Molina hasn't been up to the Hagen Smith level. I mean, there's not many that's up to him, but you still got to have, two good starters. They're bringing Gage Wood along. He may become a fourth starter that, they could really depend on as they get into the regional, super regional, and all that. Back to your question, I'm not sure, and I watch a lot of college baseball, but I'm not sure out of the top 12 or so that there's a team I think can just get on a run and be electrifying and get through, because I just don't see enough pitching out there from that's not in the SEC and the ACC.
Vince, you got Duke, Virginia as well from the ACC in there. And again, we talk about Texas and OU coming to the league, but Tennessee right now is at number 1. They were in that position, 3 years ago?
2.
And 2, it was just 2 years ago. I'm sorry, 22, when Notre Dame won that one. And my wife Audrey was madder than a wet hen when they lost. And I like Tony Vitello. I'll tell you why. I like people that are confident. I love you. Confidence resonates throughout the dugout. And granted, the fur coat and whatever. Who cares? I mean, bottom line is, I don't know. There were some things that made people mad, but man, the result was they won and they created a ton of interest. By the way, you and John Wilkerson, you'll win leg day from all those steps you're climbing over there. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Dudley, we all remember those stadiums you have to run. That's a good workout. I bet
I am grateful that Arkansas is ADA compliant in all the stadiums now that I have 2 60-year-old knees, which really I don't have 2 60-year-old knees. I have one that's about 5 years old and one that's about 10 years old. But
there you go.
I seek out elevators everywhere at the mall. If I go to the mall, I'm seeking out an elevator. I mean, these knees. The doctor told me you're going to enjoy having these 2 new knees, but take it easy on yourself. And if you go to use stairs, go down them. Don't go up them. And I said, yeah, okay. It sounds like a plan.
Yeah, it's a challenge, Vince.
No doubt. And look, after a long day, struggle with those steps a little bit more than maybe the pep in your step at the beginning. But as far as some of the other challengers, East Carolina would be another one outside of the 2 main conferences that you would look at. Really good starting pitching. They just haven't been able to break through. Is this the year for them? They get to host and have hosted, and even super regionals. I think they ran into Texas last year, and that was difficult for them. But they can always mash, so that they're a dangerous one. But I think most of the threats are going to be SEC and ACC. And look, as you guys know, anyone that gets into the NCAA tournament from the Southeastern Conference is going to be dangerous. Don't let Florida, don't let LSU in. And LSU beating number 1 Texas A&M, that's going to be a resume difference maker for them when it comes down to them. And then their reputation is going to help them as well, for sure. It's like the Lady Vols on the bubble in the NCAA women's basketball tournament. Like, sure, you're going to leave them out, right? So LSU's kind of in that situation as well, especially if they'll be, and they likely will, they get in, they're going to be a 3 seed. So you're going to have the fans traveling somewhere. I think there's a lot of people that would love to have, from a business standpoint, LSU there to bring all those butts in those seats, but they probably won't want to play them because LSU is playing better as of late.
Yeah, and like Frank Duffy was out there the entire time in Omaha, who's a big part of our show, and he was on the show with us every day from Omaha. That was the road trip. He took his wife out west in our Bingle 1, his 40-foot motor home, and he said, if we make it to Omaha, Rhonda, can I go? She said, sure. I don't know if y'all will, if LSU will. And they did. And they were there for like 11 or 12 days. He was gone for like 29 days. He goes, I can't believe I'm still standing. She had enough baseball. But, you think about it, Chris. He says the restaurant owners, the bar owners in Omaha love. I mean, you go in there, there's LSU stuff in the bars in Omaha from all their trips out there. And fan bases, that's why it's so important to follow your team, because when it's on the question, should we take this one or that one? Well, they'll bring 50,000 fans. That's a no-brainer, Chris.
Yeah, every SEC team pretty much is going to do that, other than maybe Vanderbilt, which has got such a small fan base. Yeah. And I think a lot of that goes back to football and size of school. But I mean, like Tennessee sounds like it's taken over. I've been out there when, Arkansas, Ole Miss brought a ton of people. Mississippi State took over the championship series a couple years ago. LSU would trump. LSU brings fans to Omaha when the team's not in it.
Exactly.
So, truth. I mean, I think I'll tell you the one that I'd be really interested to see if Kentucky makes Omaha, how that fan base would travel, because that's another one where they've started to pay attention. They had some sellouts for some series earlier this year. It feels like football and the populator of other things builds your fan base to the point to where as baseball gets more popular, some of these programs are starting to capitalize on that.
Yeah. They really are. Dudley, I mean, you look at Razorback Balm Stadium, 12,000, 15. And by the way, I'm going to ask this question, be completely transparent. Has anyone ever seen the fire marshal go anywhere and write him a ticket for having too many fans at a game? Where is this fire marshal? I want to know where he is.
I know him. He's there. He's got really good seats.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, he's a good dude, has really good seats. And, he makes sure that nothing too bad's going on. But he's in great seats, I'm telling you.
All right. Mama Ferraris, man. We're going to start a national chat. Mama Ferraris. Every time I'm on here, I get so excited. I was at Pete and Sam's. I love this Italian restaurant in Memphis the other day. I had the Italian sausage pizza with a side of spinach. And they people will say, this isn't Italian, this is whatever. But could you imagine if you sold food like that at a college baseball game with ice cold beer? It's hard to beat it. But the crowds out there in Omaha, you're right, Chris. The LSU fans go, whether they're in there or not, they love baseball. Vince, don't you think that we're annuitizing Major League Baseball? Auburn coach Butch Thompson's on here with us a lot, talks about it. But I think we're annuitizing the future of Major League Baseball with all this interest in college, because you're following these guys and you love to follow them in the minors, but they're not in the minors as long as they used to be. They're getting to the majors quicker because of what college is doing for them.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Rob, because here's the thing. One of the considerations, the things that they're talking about right now is giving full scholarships to the entire baseball roster, as opposed to the ridiculous 11.7 that's been in place. And then basically all your players are between 25 and 75% of a scholarship. So what's happening, and it's not exclusive because a few of them are above this, but a lot of players are getting NIL deals, and all that's doing is paying for the rest of their college. So they're not truly profiting off of the NIL. That will be a game changer for baseball in a lot of ways, to where baseball players can now profit more from the NIL. Now, obviously, we got to see what parameters they put on it or any of that kind of stuff. But as it sits right now, it will be another reason for players potentially to choose college baseball over going to Major League Baseball, and maybe turning down those dollars for Major League Baseball, because there'll be dollars on the college level and it will prepare you for the pros. And to your point, Rob, in the SEC is big of an example of this, is it gets you so ready for Major League Baseball, you can roll through that system a lot quicker. Jordan Beck, who's 22 team for Tennessee, he made his Major League debut for the Rockies this year. So, I mean, if you're really good, you can zoom through the minor league level, and the SEC, as much as anyone, has that ability. So you're talking about 32 scholarships versus 11.7, just and more reasons to go to college. So that could be a real plus for college baseball and make it even better.
I have very little doubt that Hagen Smith would be the number 2 starter for the St. Louis Cardinals right now behind Sonny Gray. I mean, I've watched him, and I know it'll be a transition just like it is for Skeens. It'll take him a while, but he's going to get up there pretty quick. He throws strikes. That's a key deal.
Yeah. Chris, let me say something real quick. I know you got to go, but I want to say thank you for redirecting us. I got kind of sidetracked. Remember, I'm ADHD and OCD, so I forgot what we were talking about earlier. I'm kidding. But Chris was like, Chris pulled me out of that top 25 preseason college football into baseball. And I'm on here with, he disappeared there, but I'm on here with Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, and Robert Plant, man. I mean, you guys are baseball savants. I mean, when you get baseball people together, your IQ combined, the three of y'all, is probably about 5'11". I mean, that's a lot. But baseball is such a cerebral game. But thank you, Chris, for doing that to us. And I know you got to go, but Vince and Dudley stay on a few more minutes. But this has been great. I love this.
Thank you. If I didn't have another engagement, I could easily stay on and talk till darkness. But
yes.
But thank you for having me.
Yeah. How can they follow you?
Southeastern 14 on YouTube is the best place to catch my work. In fact, I'm going to be doing some more baseball content this afternoon. I'll be previewing the Tennessee Vandy series. Gosh, I've drawn a blank. We're going to end up previewing all 7 series in detail and giving you predictions on why I think which team will win each series. Some will have their separate videos. Some they'll be combined 3 or 4 series into one, and then we'll recap it once it's done. So we follow it pretty extensively at Southeastern 14.
Well, thank you for all of your hard work.
When the other 2 come in?
What's that?
Are you going to rebrand when the other 2 come in?
Yeah, I think we're going to rename it Southeastern 16-ish. We was going to be 16, but the ish might always be a good qualifier at this point.
Yeah.
So
until 17 and 18 come along.
Right, and we have bought. We've made some purchases accordingly. So
I got you. All right, thank you, Chris. Have a great day. See you next week.
Thank you for having me. Sure,
you bet, man. This is, the baseball conversation in the SEC, and it's like Rodney Orr was on yesterday, Tighter Insider. I said, okay, I just looked at my watch. It's May 7th. That's the farthest I can ever remember us talking about Alabama basketball and it not, all being about football. You get to the Final Four, it does that to you. But college baseball, Dudley, the Hogs, number 5, Tennessee, number 1. This, people say that the interest is not there like it is in football and basketball. I don't know. I mean, the stadiums are typically smaller than the basketball and obviously football. That's a no-brainer. But I think people love to look at box scores. I mean, there's something about looking at the box score and, you go to the games. Remember as a kid, you see the old guy out there with a book, keeping stats, whatever like that. There's no other sport where people, I don't know, are into the stats. Can y'all think of one? I mean, I know you look at it in basketball, but baseball is something about it.
No offense to my teachers. They did a great job at Newport and educating me, but I was already ahead in math because of box scores and figuring out ERAs and averages and all that. And I learned how to do that on my own. So when I got to the math that they actually taught me, it was a little bit easier. And I think it's still, I may not be the smartest guy in the world, but you put some figures in front of me and I can do it.
Well, you're pretty damn smart. I'm going to vouch. Shep Proudfoot from Fargo. Yeah, I'll vouch for him. Look, guys, we're about out of time, but and I'm going to bounce a couple to you real quick. Vince, baseball, I really do think college, as we're getting more into the SEC games and the tournament, it's doing nothing but helping Major League Baseball. I just know in Atlanta at the Battery, man, that's SEC, ACC country. If they can get a player from SEC, ACC team, that just does nothing but boost interest/attendance.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And and look, the SEC, as we know, only 2 Hall of Famers. We talked about it on the show. That's going to change because there's already really elite SEC players, and there's a lot more coming to the major league. So the takeover, the continued takeover, will be in full force. And then you add Texas and Oklahoma, will be even more representation in the big league. So they definitely work hand in hand.
Yeah, it is. All right.
Hey, I think, I know that they've had the SEC tournament in Hoover for so long, and they'll probably continue to do that. But, man, how much fun would it be for, let's say, sports writers and fans if it was in Atlanta?
God.
Yeah.
At the Battery? Yeah.
Yeah, I think my stories would be much better.
Well, the only thing is, where are you going to? They do it in Hoover because of all the RVs that come there and the tailgating. And I'm over in the Battery a lot. I was over there about 2 weeks ago. I'm just trying to think. They built it out in Cobb County because that's where their fan base. They just followed where the season ticket holders come from. But Atlanta, as a big city, is incredible at putting on events. They got really nice people. They're great. I bet that I could see that happening. I could definitely see that happening.
Hey, they get what is it? They tear down a shopping mall and put up a parking lot.
Yeah.
Like county post, yeah.
Yeah.
They figured it out.
I could see, if you told Atlanta we're moving the tournament there, somebody's going to get eminent domain out of the way and a big check in the mail. That's kind of what I think is going to happen. All right, let's see. We got, how many more series do we have? Is it one more weekend? We're down to two. Okay. So last question, Vince Ferrara, tell them how they can follow you and tell us a team or two you think is gaining momentum and is going to be hot going into Hoover, and that'll do nothing but help them for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, great question. I'll start out there, and then I'll hit on how people can find me. I think a team that has been impressive to me, short of their rivalry series with Ole Miss, is Mississippi State. They're a team that can pitch, kind of middle of the pack offensively, but I can see them kind of putting it together in Hoover, and they certainly have before. And then LSU is playing a lot better now. Can their pitching hold up? It's been better as of late. But man, anybody's going to be a threat. I think the Tennessee and Texas A&M are two teams that are the most complete. Arkansas, as Dudley knows, elite on the mound with a best pitcher in baseball. But offensively, that hasn't been as consistent. They haven't been as good on the road. So what's that going to be like? Of course, they can stay in Fayetteville potentially until Omaha. So I would say Mississippi State, if you're looking for somebody in the middle of the pack outside of the top. We have our morning show is now on all the social medias with one handle. It's Sports Talk on 991. If you want to give us a follow, not only do we talk Tennessee, but we talk SEC, we talk national stuff as well. Sports Talk on 991, Instagram, Facebook, and X, formerly Twitter. And then my handle is Vince Sports on Twitter as well. And then all the podcasts of our shows and Vol Network work and all that at 991thesportsanimal.com.
Love
and I will toss out South Carolina. I think there's an edge to them. I think that they've got a shot there. Pitching will probably be, it'll be dependent on how far they go. But if they get to stay home and get a run going, I would throw them out as a dark horse or whatever to get there. But as far as mine, it's fearlessfriday.com is our high school site. Hogville.net is our main site where we cover all our Arkansas sports, and Dead Sports, DED Sports, is the Twitter handle or the X handle or whatever it's called this week.
Twix. I call it Twix. Get you a Twix candy bar. Twitter and X, Twix. Hey, great stuff as always. Thank you so much, both of y'all, as well as Chris Lee, executive producer Brenden Martin. Hey, we most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Go out and make things happen. I'm going to tell you something. You may be whatever you resolve yourself to be, and this SEC baseball race is heating up. Follow these guys, all of them. They work their asses off. That's why we're here. Take care. See you tomorrow.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.